Welcome to Philly Coco Presents Side Project Spotlight, episode 82. It's a developer's journey into making cool stuff. I'm Kotaro.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Aaron.
And we are Philly Coco, a Philadelphia-based Cocoa Heads community focused on Apple development that primarily, but not exclusively, means iOS, Mac, tvOS, watchOS, and visionOS development. Philly Coco's true desire is to take you higher on your own developer journey. Whew, man, that sounded pretty smooth there, I must say.
It did.
You can stop joking about it.
Yeah, I can stop joking about the flubbing. We should do like a whole what do you call it? Like a quick cut of like all the progression of like all the intros, just to see how far we've come.
Yeah, go back through 80 episodes and find all of them.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. Maybe just focus on the flubbing part. Maybe you can get ChatGPT to do that for us or whatever LLM service. But what are we talking about today?
Well, we're continuing our discussion of our app in progress here, which I guess we were calling, was it Sleepwalk
Fit.
Run? Or so now we're calling it like Bento Fit. Don't know if that's
well,
actually a name that's available. But
no, there is something called Bento Fitness or something out there. Or there is something called Bento Fit. I forgot which one. But yes, these are all code names. But essentially, the idea is that this app is meant to be a very simple app designed to just bring up specific fitness for, generally different, the three different types of people, which actually are represented here in this podcast. So in my case, I am a very casual, I don't particularly go out of my way to exercise. So aside from long walks, whereas I believe you, Steve, you are a little more...
Yeah, I'm consistent, but I'm still primarily at my home gym. And I'm like hooking up to, I'm almost maxing out my kind of ability to do stuff at home. So I might have to get a gym membership again soon.
So if you were to say like on average, like how many times do you have a exercise session a week?
I'm working out like 5 or 6 times a week.
Oh, that's pretty good actually.
For at least 30 minutes. It depends. And if it's like I alternate between straight cardio and then lifting, and I added cardio into the lifting. So if I do a lifting day, it's more like an hour because, that takes a while to do the lifting, and I do cardio beforehand, but to a lesser extent than on the cardio focused days. Because I found out that I could just do cardio depending on how intense it is. I can just do that basically every day. So if I want to get a little bit of exercise for whatever reason, I can just do it, and it's good to warm up.
Sounds like you got a better mix than me. I've been pretty much riding the bike, and that's about it. Maybe the occasional run.
Yeah, well, my focus, now it's turning to a fitness podcast, but my focus is to lose weight. And I have been, and I've kind of plateaued right now, so I'm trying to fix it. But the problem with losing weight is you can lose muscle mass too. And so I'm trying to find the balance so I'm not losing too much muscle mass while I'm trying to lose weight. That's pretty much why my weight loss, I think, slowed down so much. I'm making progress. My clothes are fitting better. Pretty soon I'm going to have to buy a whole new wardrobe, and that's how I will know that I'm pretty close to my goal.
So are you going to go for like Uniqlo fit here, or are you going for like
Uniqlo
Gap fit? Uniqlo is notorious for like really skinny
brands?
clothes.
Uniqlo
is a Japanese brand.
Oh, Japanese.
Is a Japanese is like, think of it like Japanese Gap, and debatably
Why doesn't
cheaper.
the Gap just be in Japan?
They are in
or
Japan.
Or is it just a Japanese origin, like a Japanese company?
It's a Japanese company, but
I have some Old Navy jeans on. Isn't that the same company as the Gap?
It's tangential. I think it's like either a subsidiary or a sister company.
I can't tell.
It's becoming the fashion podcast.
Yeah, now it's the fashion podcast. Like, instead of programming pies, all the developers have now dropped. Like all of our listeners, like, what the hell, guys? So anyway, I'm in the middle where Kotaro doesn't exercise much. I am consistent and ramping up, and Aaron is we'll call him the pro because he's actually done like for real like triathlons or something, right?
Yeah, on this scale I am, but like on the scale of like actual professional athletes, I'm like all the way at the bottom.
Yeah,
like not even on that chart.
It's still. You can still outrun any of us or bike any of us. So.
Or certainly outlast us, that's for sure. So understanding that we have this 3 phases, right, or different scales, I think one of the things that's the motivation for this particular app is just, I personally want just a quick hit, like, okay, how many calories have I burned today? How many steps have I taken, simple things that will like possibly motivate me to like get better at it and progress further, but not like something that's going to take up too much of my mental time. And so that was sort of the approach of sort of this app that would have sort of like in the UI UX world, there's sort of like a bento box sort of like layout, which is basically like a set of different size. It's basically a grid, but like it could have like different column spans or row spans depending on how you want to structure it.
Kind of like the Springboard is now with widgets.
Yes. Much to my chagrin to some degree, but
however,
yeah,
it's a good it's a good concept, and also you could also do some interesting theming. Speaking of Aaron, I saw the link Aaron dropped in the chat.
Bento Craft, what is that?
There's an indie app spotlight from 9 to 5 Mac. It's new and it says Bento Craft is a nifty design tool for easily making bento graphics, which is perfect. And bento graphics, I think they're referring to that style of graphics that Apple uses in their presentations where they show you all the features. Yeah. Well, here we go. We're definitely going to use this thing. We have to now.
Sounds like
I mean, it'll be perfect for what we're trying to do. I mean, ultimately, we're just trying to get like very simple sets of infographics in a bento style UI that I think will cater to each particular scale of our journey, our fitness journey, if you will. So
yeah, so it's taking HealthKit data and displaying it, but we had the idea to simplify, I guess, more like the onboarding. So we were chunking up the metrics that you could, I guess, maybe one click set up by this kind of theming, conceptual theming of where we are in our fitness journey. So where have we gotten so far after? So when people are listening to this, it's like 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
So it's
just for context, like we all have day jobs. This is legit side project-y, so we only have legitimately between the three of us maybe like half an hour to an hour a day, maybe.
Yeah, not a lot.
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
I think for me, I've sort of committed to like, okay, I'm just gonna take a small chunk here. Things like that I would call easy wins. So like a placeholder for the app icon, because if anybody knows me, they know like I don't view an app a real app or like a real something worthy of working on unless it has an app icon. It's just like a weird motivation tick.
Yeah.
Like if you can put an app icon as opposed to that silly wireframe that's defaulted of most apps that you start out with, I think somehow it becomes real in my brain. So, and then that's how I kind of like allow myself to continue. It gives me the motivation to continue working on it and treat it as if it was real.
So you made an app icon.
Yes, I made an app icon. I did basic layouts of like the flow, not including the onboarding, but just basically like, here's a grid. Here's not a bento box grid, but a grid for the homepage. Here is a settings view that you can modal into. Here is a add view, which there's nothing in there yet. And here are HealthKit integration. So we get HealthKit permissions. And then I think like very bare basic stuff. And then I think, what was the other thing? A WatchKit, a watch app extension, just to see the work that Steve and Aaron did, or was it Steve? Or it was Steve, right? You did that. You did the package.
I did very little so far.
You did something interesting. Yeah.
Well, primarily so far I refactored the whole project into SPM packages. Do we say SPM? Swift Package Manager Packages? Yeah, I guess so. It's like ATM where you don't want to say like
but it's all
machine.
You can just say Swift packages.
Swift packages, yeah. Okay, so
they were local. It was a local Swift package. Yeah,
yeah. So this is a way that I've been doing this stuff for a while, and it's even Apple has a whole page on doing development with local packages. So anyway, I did that, which was a little bit of an adventure because there's interesting wrinkles when you're doing that. So I could talk about it. The process of turning into packages, not hard on the surface. You make a Swift package and you start updating the package Swift file and setting up the directory tree inside your package for all your local packages, and then you move code in there. But the issue we had was the HealthKit. The one issue was Swift 6, like concurrency stuff hit first. So I had to do a little bit of modification to at least silence some errors. And then the way you had the initial HealthKit integration, well, it was using continuation, so I changed one of them to be async. But then the main problem was when you call the API call, which I don't have the code in front of me, but the API call to get permission to do something in WatchKit actually goes, and as part of that call internally, goes to the info plist file. So you have to call it from the main app bundle, because if you call it from an SPM or from a Swift package, it doesn't have access to info plist. This is a problem I've had for a long time. It's super, super, super annoying. And a lot of people have encountered this. You can't get two files in the main bundle from a Swift package. Even though everything's in Xcode and everything's local, there's just no way of doing it easily. Like you just can't. Because it's all isolated. So the info plist thing is one of those which I have run into many times. And so when it started not working, it wasn't obvious at first, but then I was like, oh, this is probably because it can't do something. Because in the documentation, it says it does this. And then eventually I did see an error message in the console. I think, but it wasn't obvious at first. So then I had to refactor things and move the HealthKit call so that, you were setting it up as part of like the init in an observable, which also was not observable. I changed it to that too. It's like you guys were like, right? It's like you wrote this code for iOS like 15
or 16, yeah.
Like I can tell you're working on work now. It's a lot easier when you're doing stuff with the modern ways. So anyway, I did that. It wasn't too big of a deal. You just basically, and it's probably better to do it this way anyway, to be more explicit about it than hiding that kind of thing in the initializer, because it is like it does, cause like a side effect and a UI to pop up and stuff like that. So it's probably better to be more explicit about it. So essentially I refactored it. So we have a Swift package currently called app feature, which is how I normally do this, which is like the new entry point. That is a dependency in the app bundle. And then everything else is a dependency in the app feature. So the idea is if you can get away with it, which is not, as we saw here, it's not totally possible in this case, because I needed to get the WatchKit integration directly into the app bundle to call it. But the point of doing this is so that you don't have to keep adding like all these packages as dependencies into your main app bundle. And I think the idea that's technique when I first saw it somewhere was also to prevent lots of churn of the project file, because you're basically keeping the work focused in the Swift packages. You're not updating constantly stuff that's the project file. So it is not necessarily the thing you'd want to do. I don't know. I've been doing it. I've been okay with it, but I've run into problems too, where if the entry point is, as I said, like the Swift package, and you can run into issues where you're like, I can't access things that are in the main bundle if I need it, for instance. But, I think it works pretty well, and then it keeps things pretty clean, but we can always change that. But that's the main thing. There's an app feature, there's a HealthKit integration, package. I added a tiny little helper method into the package.swift to just make it a little less verbose to add new libraries in there, because the typical format for creating a library has you basically repeating the name twice as strings. So it's just like a simple little method. So you just do it once. Mm-hmm. That kind of thing. I got a lot of this from the Swifty Stack course from like a year ago.
Nice.
I don't know if you guys ever saw that. I've talked about before the Swifty Stack. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is by Christoph. I can't pronounce this. I just everyone, you know who he is. You know who he is on the internet.
It'll be in the link. It'll be in the notes.
Yeah. I'll put the Swifty Stack link.
Swifty Stacks.
I can't pronounce anything. So, but I got. He goes into a lot of this, how to set up a project, and I think that's where I first got it from. So that's what we've done so far. I think.
And Aaron, you integrated another data point that you were interested in.
Yeah, I was like trying to get running miles like by week. So, and I was like, it should be the same as kind of some of the other things that were already there, like steps and heart rate, I think, that you added before. But those were like built-in like convenience queries.
Yeah. And
the only one that was built in that had to do with running is running and walking distance combined, which I'm not interested in. So then
really.
Yeah.
Are you interested in them separately?
Yeah, so then I have to like, what's that?
Are they interesting as a separate?
Yeah. I mean, it might be interesting for somebody else. And like, I know, like, if the activity rings and things like that, there'll be like goals for like walking and running. It's like Apple clearly cares about that as a thing where they combine those into one thing. It's like, oh, the distance you went today, and it combines it together. But if you want to get running separately, it's like I have to fetch all the workouts, and then by workout type running, and then like combine it. So I had to figure out the terrible HealthKit APIs for.
Well, yeah, we didn't actually do a lot of research on whether there's existing HealthKit. We talked about this before, whether there's some existing wrapper libraries or something we might want to use. But yeah, the APIs are kind of tedious to use.
You have to use like NS predicates and nonsense like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of setup. It's a lot of boilerplate setup, and then to get stuff. And I was just thinking, the health app doesn't. I guess the health app does not have like your running workouts or something. Neither does the fitness app. Does it?
It does. Just whatever. This is not presented in a great way.
No, but I mean, I don't. Does it have a roll up like you're asking?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
If it's there, it's not easy to find. The main thing is health. All of these things exist other places, but you have to do a whole bunch of setup to get this. And the idea that I launch my app or even like look at a widget on my watch or something, and I can see my totals without having to go somewhere else.
Well, I mean, I was asking because I guess we've learned that even if it is in health or fitness, that it doesn't mean there's a convenience query for it.
Yeah, there wasn't that many, and I was surprised which ones were there. I was like, there got to be like just running distance. No, you have to go and like filter through all the running workouts and add that up yourself.
So Apple went through this pain themselves, and they built these apps. You think they would make the API better?
They just love. Like that one particularly is just, I remember it being notorious for just being like so many options that you had to like sift through to figure out which one you actually cared about.
Right, which is why we were going to make sure we're on the same page about stats this episode.
Yes. I think we had talked about like maybe coming up with independently 3 to 5 that we cared about, and maybe start there. But that could be like sort of the maybe if there was some overlap, we can then like combine the two, or just say, okay, we're both commit to like this set of like 14 or 13, to start with. Then the other thing we'd have to figure out is like, is there any commonality in terms of how the stat is? I guess what is the value that comes back that we can go, okay, we can make like a singular bento card for, or composable as we can.
We have an ongoing list. We have an ongoing list here that I started in the project, and we say we just go through this, and we'll just, while we're here, we're recording these kind of like we're doing a meeting together. So you're kind of listening in. Okay, so I was looking through this stuff, and the things I seem to most care about are things related to heart, like the current heart rate, resting heart rate, VO2 max, and then some other stuff that's just general health, like weight, and especially like a weight trends, which I know that the health app calculates. So that's pretty cool. And I know Happy Scale, so I use that for that. And then sleep metrics, I use the built-in stuff, and I also use Sleep++, which has its own algorithm for telling you whether you've slept well and stuff. But so weight, sleeping, and then obviously steps, because everybody wants steps. But my thing seems, I focus lately on the heart-related stuff and cardio-related stuff and weight. That's my focus right now. But obviously we have Aaron, we had running. What was the metric?
Miles per week.
Running miles per week.
Per week, which is good. So, and I was just looking at what was already in there. I guess we could we don't have to just use queries we've already seen. We can, as long as we can think about it, we can, and get the data, we can make whatever. But running miles per week is good.
Any other specific, like, at a glance?
That's what I care about right now, but I'll probably think about once I actually start using the app.
Yeah.
What I want.
I think same with you. The weight thing is actually kind of interesting. Sushi consumed per day.
Super diet. Wait, that's not a HealthKit.
Man, that would be amazing.
You can put whatever you want in HealthKit, right?
I was about to
can
say,
you?
Like, I wonder if you can do that.
Wait, can you
like,
actually?
What's it? There's caffeine intake is actually.
Can you create like your own custom HealthKit types and stick them?
I don't know.
Maybe?
I don't know if you can, because it's not supposed to be a general purpose database. Caffeine is a good one though. I've been trying to. Oh yeah, I didn't really put in the food stuff. I track a lot of food, so like, nutrients
nutrition
is probably going. So
yeah.
The caffeine one is good because if you something like I do with Food Nom, and you make sure that caffeine is part of the food you're logging. Yeah, it'll log caffeine in Food Nom and go into HealthKit, and then in HealthKit you could surface like how much caffeine you had.
Yeah.
And it's actually really useful. When you can also do water, all kinds of macros can be tracked in there.
Water might be interesting. The other one is let's see, steps. I think walking distance might actually be one that I would be interested in. Yeah. And I guess we could
use the walking, running query for that.
Yeah, exactly. I don't run much at all, so I think it'll be fine. Like total distance of like the combined distance of both. The heart rate is good. What other tracking metrics, particularly around because we all have watch apps.
Real-time heart rate might be interesting. I don't know. Have you tried getting any like the real-time metrics from the watch?
That would be interesting. Yeah. I mean, how often is that updated on your phone? Because like what we're doing is we're basically taking a lot of the stuff that's aggregated elsewhere, whether it be through the phone, through your watch, other apps, and then they've saved to the HealthKit database, for which then it gets resurfaced in our app, or that's the hope.
Yeah. So real time, I use there's a third party heart metrics app I talked about before, and that also has a watch app. And the watch app will give you your heart rate over time, like a little graph, and it'll tell you your current heart rate. But it actually, what it does is it tells you the last recorded heart rate data, which is usually a few minutes behind. And then there's like a button you can tap, which then activates a real-time heart rate check, and then it'll update the UI. So there's, I don't know what that API is, but real-time, it's not really real-time in HealthKit. It's the watch wakes up, unless you're in the mode, like in the app or in some other app that actually is doing it while you're looking at it. What happens is it just does it every few minutes or something. And then if you're in like a workout mode, it'll do it more often, maybe continuously.
I guess we don't really need real-time data. I'm just curious of what that looked like.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be useful to look at, because it can be convenient if you're already in there and you're looking at your heart rate data. Just tap a button, like, what is my current heart rate? But it seems like there's a mode change for that, because the watch is just doing stuff.
Yeah, you're not pulling it from the database. You're pulling it right off the sensor if you want to get live data.
That's what I think is happening. I think it's a different API call, but I haven't looked into it. But you could definitely get like the last heart rate that was recorded. You can plot it on a chart and all kinds of stuff.
I think it's actually kind of interesting. Like, there are tons of categories because I'm trying to like figure out how we group this when you want to add something in an easy, convenient way. So I'm trying to figure out like, one could be around weight training, one could be around, cardio, one could be around heart and health, and then the others could be like miscellaneous, and maybe do it in sort of like an app store style, like horizontal row. You pick this, you pick that. That's an open discussion of like how we want to like allow the users to add these components and then customize them if they need to. I don't want to have them customize it too much if we even want to provide that option. That's a fair open question.
Customization is a paid feature.
It should be. Yeah.
Well, no, we're keeping it simple.
Those queries aren't free.
We should do it. We should do. We should do. We should do pay $1 per query.
You want your heart rate? Pay us.
You can either get it for free or from the actual.
You have so many
phone
tokens that you can cash in to get metrics. Like each heart rate, each HealthKit API query is a certain number of tokens. We're just going to turn it into like an LLM type of payment system. Pay us in tokens. Really overcomplicate it.
Yeah. In fact, we need to do it so that you pay $5 to get like 450 tokens, and then like it mess with the economy that way because it's not all 1-to-1.
Yeah, the simple bento shaped HealthKit dashboard now has its own microeconomy.
Oh my goodness, we've already gone straight to evil.
Can't be helped. It's where our minds go.
I know. You gotta put that money in for that studio display.
I know, man. They're not getting any cheaper.
Exactly.
Apple will never make them cheaper, and there's no alternative because all the alternatives suck in some way. They're all like not quite good enough. They're not quite as. Now it's turning into a studio display review podcast. But I actually did, as an aside, I did stumble upon maybe it was Renee Ritchie. Actually, yeah, Renee Ritchie, if various Apple blogging and YouTubing fame. He did a video about how he just bought a studio display, and it's like, yeah, because there really isn't much of an alternative. It's like,
really, that's funny.
Because it's the only thing that has the combination of build quality, good screen, and integration to Mac OS, essentially. You can find other things, but they all have some kind of trade-off.
Right.
I mean, the main trade-off being money. You don't have to spend $1,500 on other screens, but whatever. That was my mini studio display rant. We got to get that in once in a while.
Fair enough.
Because I'm looking at an old cinema display that's like dying on me. Like, I'm going to need to buy a new one soon.
Yeah. All right, we gotta hurry up on getting this out then.
Yeah, because our free app is good somehow. It's like the Underpants Gnomes from South Park. Isn't it South Park? The Underpants Gnomes a long time ago.
You're gonna have that subscription, right?
Yeah. subscribe for
like
for
and subscribe.
Heart rate monitoring in the app.
99 cents each.
Yeah, exactly.
Each metric.
99 cents per bento metric. There we go.
I mean, to be honest, like what would probably be a decent selling point would be like if you want access to like the more bespoke and high interest like bento items that might be something worth exploring. It's like these are the ones that we spent the time to. It's not something that was like easily aggregated from Apple's HealthKit and refined. I mean, and minorly refined. We're talking like something that's very, and maybe even one that's a little more graphically interesting. So
along those lines, again, that Heart app I use has a paid option, which I did, and it gives you additional, like metrics and graphs and details that are not in the regular dashboard views.
Mm-hmm.
So similar in concept, and I bought it. It wasn't that expensive.
I mean, one thing that will be interesting as like a further exploration is once we get it on the Watch app, getting it in as a widget is kind of like a semi no-brainer. But then the other thing is getting it as a control panel, for which then we can use the action button to see how we can get more direct access to some of these. I don't know if control panel really is all that useful in this case, aside from just a deep link into something. But maybe there could be like a special view that only can be accessed through the action button. I don't know.
Hey, it turns out I'm opening up the prototype. It's on my watch here.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out I've run 9.366934113997683 miles this week.
Yeah, got to round that.
I think we're going to need to round these numbers a little bit.
We're talking Bitcoin money here.
But it is working on the watch. It's still called Sleepwalk Run, but that's okay.
Did I not change that? I thought I changed it.
Or at least not the build that's on my watch. I don't know.
You've ran more than me this week.
Whoa.
On my little treadmill, if it counts. I don't know how it calculates how far I've run on a treadmill. I guess just
Did you specify the workout? Did you
well,
specify that was a workout?
I do. I picked an indoor run, and I just don't know what the
it's
algorithm
by
is.
for a treadmill. It's by like some kind of estimate based on your arm movement.
Yeah,
from the watch.
Yeah, it seems pretty. It like seems reasonably accurate. I do have a nice rhythm with my arm movements.
I'm seeing that right now. It almost looks like you're skiing.
Yeah, it's a little different. It's more like this movement, I think, than this movement.
Oh, that's the elliptical one, right?
So you can't see it, listeners. I'm being really goofy on camera. It's too bad we don't do this as a video podcast.
Maybe it's a good thing. People are turning us into a meme that way.
We're probably already a meme.
Fair.
Like
some tiny corner of the internet cares.
Shout out to you, Sean.
We have no easy way to receive feedback. We never know.
It's true. We don't have a chat here, so we're just
should probably create an email address or something just to find out. Anyway, I guess originally before we had that impromptu monetization discussion, monetization.
Yes. I said it right this time.
We were just figuring out the stats. So I updated the card here with a bunch of things. Do we want to be any more specific than this? I think you can just pick from these. And we can just go.
Yeah, these are already a lot.
Yeah, I know.
One of the things, like any of the what I would call like the casual or the lazy stuff can be stuff that I can focus on, like retrieving from HealthKit.
So I think the food nutrients is, I mean, maybe caffeine or something, but I think steps is a low hanging fruit. I'm not sure what the API is, but I'm guessing the time of sleep can't. I think that's in HealthKit, right? That can't be too bad.
One thing I do wonder, how do we want to save the data set and the order?
Are we just doing which queries there?
More like which cards, right? So like
which cards they have, because we're not saving any data from the cards, right?
No.
Then you start getting
we're just saving the organization and the card type or something.
Preferences.
Yeah, basically. So would it make sense in this case just to be, okay, we're just saving it as a user default and maybe or a keychain sync so it can be cross-device? Like, how do we want to do that? So this goes into sort of a pseudo-architectural question because we're not saving the data. All we're saving is like, okay, which bento items is the person saving? I'm saving the heart rate. Am I saving the weight? And then, okay, fine. And now I'm saving it in this order.
Isn't there a iCloud? Isn't there something already that's like a key value pair that syncs across devices?
There is a way to do, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's like people probably screaming at us right now, but I know there's like a keychain version of
keychain can do it.
Keychain can do it easily, and it might make sense from I don't think of it as like, oh, this is a big data privacy issue, right? Because it's like you said, it's no different from settings or something like that, right?
Is it even necessary that we have true device syncing? Because it's all the data comes from HealthKit. The preferences themselves.
But how would you
on your device
sync that with your WatchKit app, or access it through a widget?
Right. Well, I mean that's what I mean. Isn't that stuff in the main bundle?
Yes.
And you could pass along. I don't know. Let's look into it. Like share keychain thing. There's also that. This is overkill probably. There's also that shared wrapper library that Point Free just came out with, which you could have multiple kind of persistence strategies for it, including writing your own.
We could do something like a very simple Swift data. I mean, the as weird as it's going to sound, it might actually not be that hard to implement as a Swift data item, and then use CloudKit sync and just save a JSON blob or something. I mean, it's overkill, right? Because I don't know. Okay, I do want to edit it, right? I do want to say, okay, maybe this data item is not important to me, so I'll switch it up. I'll switch it with like some food related stuff, and that way it's malleable, right? But what's the quick and dirty way to me is like I'll just save it as a like a data object of some kind and just store it, or a codable and just store it in like a user default or a keychain item, right? Like it doesn't have to be overly complicated. How to store it? There's an iCloud option.
Yeah, I was thinking. I thought there was something. Is this a built-in thing? Or?
Yeah. I just posted that.
Okay.
The freaking chat is like, it has this on my screen. It's literally in the bottom right-hand corner of my monitor. So
it's on the right side for us, or at least for me.
Well, yeah, it's on the.
Okay. Well,
so
see, that's pretty straightforward. Like,
so
I'm not looking for anything complicated.
We could use this NS. You see, everybody who was screaming at us, we found it.
Very old.
We found it.
That'll fit our coding style.
Was 5.
Is that really the latest API for this? Is still
2020. So
that's 2020. So I don't know if there's another API, but NS ubiquitous key value store, but it's pretty unpleasant to work with. Fortunately, there are third-party developers who have come up with libraries. So again, there's this is from Hacking with Swift we're looking at. So it looks like we can probably find a library wrapper for this to make it easier. I didn't know this was a thing. Honestly, I had no idea.
I knew there was a keychain version of this, but I didn't know, like, I forgot, or
is that
I
where
don't
it's
remember
putting this? I have no idea.
If I mean, it looks like they use the default, but oh geez, is that Objective-C?
Yep, it's 100% Objective-C. This thing,
No,
because it's old.
Right, no, okay, no.
Yeah, we might not use that particular one.
That's a no.
Yeah, I'm guessing they want you to use CloudKit for modern stuff.
You mean? Oh yeah, but like, how much of it is?
Yeah,
like...
but we don't really need. If we're just storing some preferences.
Yeah.
This is kind of what this is for, but
yeah.
I don't know, man.
This is something where I am more than happy to get feedback on, as a like, okay, we should do this in the modern way. So if we get emails, hopefully.
I mean, this is the
iCloud.
Driver. This is the iCloud key value store. But seriously, this is the same. Like, this is their API.
Synchronize app preference with iCloud. How old is that sample code?
iOS 13.5 sample code.
Okay, well, yeah.
Xcode 11.6. I mean, it's like
we're not going that. Hello, that's not terrible. I mean, it's a little verbose, but that does smell very much like Objective-C.
Yeah, well, it probably still is Objective-C
under the hood.
API.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so we have Swift Data CloudKit, we have NS ubiquitous key value store. I haven't had to say an NS API. I haven't seen one of those in a while. And then there's also like the keychain. We can literally just do keychain items, which is weird. I think it's an overload of keychain. Not necessarily what you want to do, but I mean, I store serialized stuff in a keychain. That's how I tend to store like token stuff, because usually you need like a little bit more than just the straight up token data, and I've done that.
I mean, I agree that it is overkill for what we're trying to do.
It does work though. Like I've stored structured data in the keychain, small amounts of it. You just serialize it,
because it's not hard. To think of like how much data would we be storing? It wouldn't be a lot at all. So,
well, if you're just talking about the preferences or like what selections you have, then very little. It would just be like key value pairs, like a dictionary or something.
Yeah, not bad at all.
Doesn't have to be much at all. So we have at least 3 different options of different levels of overkill and hackiness. So
over engineering. I think.
In fact.
Are we like, I know I'm like on the spectrum of like, I am the sloppiest coder of.
I know.
So
also, you're like 2 years out of date on your Swift code.
I blame ChatGPT on that one.
No, you're right. You can't. I mean, the LLMs, the ones I've tried to use, those models are all outdated. Like I still can't get them to reliably or ever give me observation stuff. Okay, so Copilot doesn't seem to ever understand that exists. I think it's a couple years out of date. I haven't used much of ChatGPT for that, but you're telling me which model GPT we're using.
I was just using the free version, so
which is like, I don't know what that is. Is it 4 now, or is it 3.5 still? I don't know.
I'm guessing it's 3.5 because it feels very old. Like and it's very limited because it'll stop me from like after maybe like 10, probably less than 20 prompts. It'll be like, okay, you're done for today. So
yeah.
So I can't even like abuse it the way you would probably be using it on your side.
The LLMs are, they tend to spit out older code, and at least the ones we've used. So that's kind of tough. I haven't really tried the local stuff too much. I've been experimenting with running them. Like I ran like an R1 version on my device, and again, I think it was still pretty similar like last time I messed with it. But I didn't do much of it. That's another thing we can play with while we're building this is.
I mean, we could like download was a deep sync or whatever.
Yeah, I have
that.
Like I have it on my. I ran it on my M1 Max MacBook Pro, 32 gigs of RAM. I think I ran maybe it was a 14 billion model. I don't know. I ran one of the slightly bigger ones. It was a little slow. So you probably want to go to the smaller ones, but I did run. I mean, I ran one of them I got from Ollama. So it's like again, it's like it's not the one that they're all talking about specifically, because it's been like shrunken essentially. I'm not going to go into details about how the LLMs models work, but you can download various sizes of this thing from LM Studio or Ollama and run them locally. And actually, the smaller ones run really well on Apple Silicon. So I mean, you can give it a shot.
Does it improve on like giving you like reasonable code or like reasonably up-to-date code?
Well, I haven't tried it much. That's the thing. So I will give it a shot, and maybe next episode I'll be able to tell you more, because I've just been experimenting with different GUIs for running these things, and also different models. There's just so many. I'm trying to find what kind of works for Swift, especially for coding-based models. There's just so many local models in the open source world now. So many. And so it's like its own little rabbit hole to go down to try to download these and try them out. And of course, I only have so much storage space,
Right.
So I gotta be careful. And time, but they're really easy. It's really easy to just download these things and then run them, and then you just their R1 is like the DeepSeek one's a reasoning model, quote unquote reasoning. Freaking hate AI terminology, but that thing will like have think tokens that happen at first, so it takes a longer to talk to you. So you have to actually kind of interact with it differently than most of the other ones, which are chat based. So you kind of have to know that, and then but otherwise it's pretty easy to play with these.
Because it's basically like quote unquote reasoning, like going back and forth with itself to be like
it does this multi-step thing. So really with that, what seems to work best is if you give it more stuff up front, like here's what I want, here's what the format is I want out of it, here's a bunch of context, and then let it figure out the problem. Don't tell it how to do it. Whereas the chat-based ones, you have to kind of tell them what to do, because you're trying to direct the model in its to kind of output the stuff you want. So you kind of have to. What I find is easier to you tell the chat-based ones, you're like, you are a iOS developer, it's like you will only spit out code and not long-winded explanations, and you give it more specificity about what to do sometimes. So there's like a subtle difference I find between, and I'm not like super experienced with, I'm not a super experienced prompt engineer, but to the extent that I've done any prompting, it's there is definitely
like saying that
difference.
Prompting word.
Yeah. There's definitely like a difference between the more chatty based, the more traditional chat LLMs and the quote unquote reasoning ones, models, and how you interact with them and like what works best. And also, I think a lot of it is just experimentation based on your specific circumstances, your specific model, your specific use case. And again, Swift is just not a great language for any of these. It seems it's just not. No, it's not as well represented enough in the model data.
Yeah, not enough out there for them to digest.
That's why all the cool kids, spelled with a K, Kewl, right? All the cool kids are all JavaScript programmers, TypeScript programmers, those kind of thing.
What do we do with our career? Soon we'll be in the same category as the COBOL developers,
Hey man, COBOL developers make $1 gazillion.
They do.
And there's modern COBOL. I looked into this. because people make fun of COBOL all the time. I was like, wait a second, COBOL? I looked at COBOL still gets updated. Like COBOL has like modern features. It's crazy, and it's not that hard. And I don't, and people, yeah,
because back in the day it was a procedurally generated.
It's still procedural.
It's still procedural. So
I mean, it's still COBOL, but like I think they've added stuff to it. But the thing is, COBOL, it's not like the hardest thing in the world. But people seem it's just because old people think it's super difficult. But it's pretty funny that you'd be like, oh, you want to be like a COBOL programmer? Like, do I want to make a gazillion dollars?
Do you want to make maybe two to 300 per hour in the northeast corridor? Yeah.
Do I want to make as much as like a Google engineer, but in Philadelphia? Exactly. But I just have to work on really boring, ancient. I don't know. No, actually, the hard part, I did a little bit of a deep dive. See, this is just the episode of randomness. I did do a little bit of a rabbit hole on this, and apparently the hard part is, I think, more like the development environment and getting used to that. But I didn't try to set up anything for it, so it's.
Could you write COBOL code on not in like a mainframe terminal, but on your local machine?
Yeah.
Can you do that?
Can write on anything. Yeah. Hell, man, there's still.
I mean,
we're used to these way more advanced development environments. I don't know what the current state of COBOL is, but there was like a kerfuffle on the Linux kernel, mailing list. And the only thing I want to bring up about that was that people still use grep to go through code bases on that on that list. Like, it's really important you can grep things. So, people don't realize how little you need to program. That's what I'm saying, like tool-wise.
Yes.
And how little we had in the day, and how little our predecessors had back in the day.
I mean, it's amazing.
This crazy stuff.
I kept thinking, like, for all the complaining about PS5 games being like these massively downloaded, like tons of gigs and gigs of files, I kept thinking, like, that's probably not optimized code and or assets at all. They probably have duplicates everywhere and just unused assets, or assets that are not like reused in any way aside from that one scene. And they spent too much time in that one area when they should have just like not spend that time there and just been like, okay, let's keep your cameras from that angle so we don't have to actually make something for that space.
Yeah.
But in any case.
So anyway, thank you for that was a tangent episode.
This is the tangent episode.
But I guess before we leave though, we want to talk about a little bit about what we're focused on next, I suppose.
Yes. So for me, one of the things that I want to do now, since I feel like we've got kind of the meat of the app in good shape, is to actually start building some of the UI and start really fleshing that out. We might start out with Sketch to sort of like
Sketch.
The Sketch app to
any chance to use Sketch. I like Sketch.
Yeah, any chance to use Sketch for like legit use it, I'll use it because I prefer that over Figma any day. Any day of the week.
Although isn't Figma like creating like AI tooling or something to help you make stuff? I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure it is
doing that.
The thing goes back to like one of the things that I do agree with Primogen in that sense of like, I don't want to be so reliant on AI that I lose the muscle memory of how to write code in general.
I know I think every episode of a tech podcast ends up being partially about LLMs nowadays, and a developer podcast. But yeah, he's right. Primogen, I think, has a really good take on this stuff. And you should learn how to do this stuff yourself, because you don't try to outsource your thinking to a computer program. Yeah. That's a recipe for disaster.
I think there's just a joy in the process of like the struggle, and I don't think
especially if it's a side project.
Yes.
Like I am perfectly willing to use these models to try to like explore maybe the HealthKit API or something like that. But, you have to double check what it comes out, what it spits out, and don't take it for gospel.
Yeah. I mean, you actually helped clean it up once we actually did the initial pass.
Is that all LM generated code?
A good chunk of it is, yeah, but it didn't compile. So I had to go back, and then I added like extra stuff like the final class, some of the slightly more modern thing, and then I was like, observables. But then you were like 1 year ahead of me in that sense, because I like completely forgot about the what was it, the
observation framework.
Observation framework is the better way to do it, or the more
Oh, yeah.
modern way.
It
completely forgot about
works
that.
better. Like
Yeah.
it seriously works better, and it like in my experience, it's really good, and it especially if you're using Swift UI, you should try to be using that if at all possible.
Yeah, it's cleaner.
Oh yeah,
and so, I those are things where I'm like, okay, I get a sense of how this works, but I wouldn't know that if I didn't have the years of experience of like knowing like, oh, this is a smell, or this is old, or this is not quite what I want, and then I can just deep dive into like ripping it apart. And
so you're thinking
further.
You can use Sketch to sketch out some UI for the main Bento screen.
Yeah,
like
more,
yeah.
Because I'm trying to figure out like what is the personality of the app at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to like get a sense of like, okay, is it like, are we in some ethereal space? Are we in like a skeuomorphic bento box of sorts? Like where does it make sense?
You're gonna explore the app's personality.
Yes,
using Sketch.
That'll be the goal.
Okay, that's cool. What else we got going on here? I guess let's see. The HealthKit manager stuff. I was listed here to like add tests for that or start messing around with that. Like that could probably use some refactoring and testing. I really do think we need tests around the HealthKit integration stuff, so we don't shoot ourselves in the foot. But there's that. So you're doing the UI, so I don't want to mess around with that.
I think one of the things that
obviously adding more things to the HealthKit integration is probably a thing both Aaron and I can do.
Yeah. Especially the way we can normalize or shape the data so that when we add it to the Bento card, it's just some kind of like easy to like manage data format, or like the data format's already figured out. It's like all we have to do is display it.
Yeah, and then we'll refactor as we go, and maybe add tests because we love tests here. Well, there's a new Swift testing framework, or the Point Free is a good testing framework too. Part of a side project is to explore stuff without getting yourself bogged down. With HealthKit, it does, I think, make sense to have some basic tests around if we can, and it'll force us to think about how the dependency operates too.
Me and Aaron did chat a little bit about. Well, let's see if Xcode Cloud is any good.
Well, that's a good point. I have that on my to-do list at work for like 2 years. I'm like, get Xcode Cloud set up, and I just, for this project.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it for this one.
We do have some free amount of ability to use, right? There's some free whatever.
Yeah.
Build time on Xcode Cloud. It's not as much as it used to be, but for this, it's fine. I'm not using it on this plan. This developer account we're using is not using Xcode Cloud for anything right now. So we have tokens. So Xcode Cloud set up. Yeah, we could do that. That would actually be might be pretty useful because you were mentioning about you would like to maybe have some kind of at least build tests run around the brand, around the master branch here.
Whether or not the master branch, like it not allow the build to be merged in if the build fails.
Xcode Cloud
or the branch.
Wow, that would work. I mean, if that's the build system instead of trying to use, because the other option I thought was that new Xcode build CLI thing, whatever we're calling it. What do they call it? You just read this, right? On the I think it was on the Swift. Was a Swift blog? Yeah, see the Swift build technologies. Swift build. Right. It's called Swift build. But I thought, we could maybe do something with Swift build. But yeah, I think Xcode Cloud is probably, considering it's a side project, trying to go the path of least resistance is get it to work in Xcode Cloud, because then we'll be integrated fully in Xcode and not have to worry about having like 2 build chains running just to get some tests. So, but the idea of Swift build, if you guys haven't looked at this, you really should. It is the build system that supposedly the Xcode uses, Swift Package Manager uses. Again, I'm trying to scroll a screen on the wrong screen. So it is supposedly the actual build tools that Apple uses for stuff, and so the idea is to be able to bring Swift to more platforms.
Yeah, I don't know. I sort of looked through this, and I don't think it's going to replace like building apps for iOS, right? I think the idea is that like you can build for other platforms, but if your thing is for iOS, you think you still need to use Xcode, but I could be wrong.
What is it? Xcode build?
Yeah.
Anyway, the people do use like Cursor and some of these other like AI IDEs to build stuff in Swift. I mean, I've seen people on X posting about this. I'm not exactly sure how the build chain is set up, but it's using the command line. I think it's using it's using some CLI, the Xcode build. Is Xcode build, is that the command?
Yeah.
I think it's using that. So, which I guess
you still need like the Xcode tool chain.
Yeah, you need the Xcode toolchain. But I think Xcode build, I think this is like an extraction of at least part of that, right?
Right. I'm saying for things that aren't running on Apple platforms. I think exactly. That's what this is for.
That makes sense because it's Apple and they never want to make can't have one way of doing things.
Gotta have a moat somewhere.
Yeah. But there is a way of doing it. Like you can set up a whole environment to code in Swift, and it's just kind of slow because you have to do the build routine with the command line, and so to get things to run. But I think there's enough CLI tooling, and probably has been for years, that you can actually do stuff outside of Xcode, at least a lot of stuff. I mean, obviously you can because there's other cross-platform projects that do things, but I mean, I think you can just like do it in something like Cursor or whatever if you really want to. There's instructions someone's probably put online on how to set it all up, but we're not doing that. We're sticking with a buggy, old, familiar Xcode, which, I mean, I swear to the ghost of Steve Jobs, man, that this program is so freaking awful sometimes. I downloaded your branch and the thing wouldn't even build. It wouldn't even build, and all I did was restart Xcode, and then it suddenly built. I'm like, what the I did nothing.
Come on, man.
Started the program again.
You know how this works. We come from the age of rebooting all the time.
But what part of the Xcode IDE was causing it to not be able to build the app? I cleared all the caches and everything. I had to restart the binary, like the Xcode binary. I'm like, what the hell, man?
It might have been I know sometimes with packages, it's kind of funny that way.
Yeah, packages,
where it's notorious for
really annoying.
You just restart it and then it works.
I run into a lot of problems with doing local packages. I think it's still worth it because you can modularize your code, but it's still annoying, and you still have issues. Although the latest Xcodes are a lot better than previous Xcodes for with SwiftUI previews and stuff. But it's Xcode still, man. It gets better, but it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back every time I get it.
If you guys have a chance, it would be great to at least figure out ways to add and remove any of these cards so that we can start to manipulate them in a sort of we can add and customize our Bento experience.
Oh, okay, yeah. We could do that.
That would be really cool to see. So 2 things really is to add more data items, and then be able to modify the UI to so that I can add and remove Bento items. That'll be a really good item to work on. And for me, I think I'm going to just try to figure out the design language for this thing to get it so that we can, and then I'll be doing majority of that in Sketch, and then we can kind of see how that looks. And that'll be my task for this next 2 weeks.
Okay. You can only assign 1 person per task in here in GitHub, which makes sense, I guess, but
yeah.
Interesting. Anyway, every time I'm in the GitHub project, I learn some new wrinkle about how it doesn't work the way I want it to.
Yes.
Whatever. So we got Sketch. We're going to sketch up the app's personality. We're going to add HealthKit metrics, maybe some tests if we're really, want to feel pain. Xcode Cloud setup, hopefully not painful, but Xcode Cloud setup would actually be probably a good idea to look at along with the testing, because that would facilitate making the test useful and checking for build problems. And then, of course, a little bit of add remove functionality from the UI so we can more efficiently play around with this stuff, because we're going to need to, play with the views and the layouts and, all that stuff. So that is a lot of stuff for us to do half hour a day. So I think we got enough. On the plate for this.
Yes, we do.
I think we're still on track. I'm going to add an update to our project. I'm going to say,
still on track.
We have a build that works on iPhone and Apple Watch. Basic HealthKit integration, UI in development. We are still on track.
Still on track.
Still on track. Save that update. There we go. Our target date is still April, and so I think we're still on track.
All right. Well, that's all we have for today. You can learn more about Philly Cocoa at phillycocoa.org. There you'll find links to our Slack group, meetup schedule, and contact info. And if you're feeling generous, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your podcast platform of choice is, and share us with all your developer friends. And one more thing. All right, this is our non-sponsor thing for Mio Vino, a wine tasting journal app developed by the App Johns LLC. This is just a wonderful app. It's a Mio Vino, MIOVINO.app. It's basically an app on the iPhone, iPad, and Mac. Oh, I didn't realize there was a Mac version of this.
God.
Oh, nice. Where you can
Even
basically...
all the latest UI goodness for the cross-platformness.
Yeah. Apparently, an early beta tester said that's effing cool. Another one, Alexander from Hungary, said
I like to bring my 16-inch MacBook Pro to wine tastings myself.
Exactly. This app is really fun, actually. I used Vivino some time ago, but it's very bloated now. This one is simple and to the point. So
you just read someone's review?
Yes, I just read some guy from Hungary's review on the website.
Wow.
So basically,
this app just came out, and it's like a side project, and he has people in Hungary writing reviews?
Apparently.
We are not at that level yet. That is what we need to aspire to be. Mio Vino level is like our aspirational goal right there. That's impressive, man.
Just so people know, because I don't think I went through this, it's basically the key features is to snap a photo, take a picture of the label, let Vino remember it for you. You can rate your wines. You can collect and see your collections of all the wines that you've selected. You can filter by style. You can add notes, and there are other optional details that you can provide it. And yeah, it's a subscription-based app, but it's free to try. And I think it's quite generous in terms of what it provides for free. So that is Mio Vino app at Mio Vino app. And that is our non-sponsor sponsor.
It actually, I think, uses some AI calls for some of that recognition. Because we had a little discussion with the developer at a Philly Cocoa meeting. And it's an example, I think, of how mobile developers can build an app that is still like really needs to be an app, and yet can still use some of this new quote unquote AI stuff and to add features that would have been way more difficult to do a few years ago.
Yes.
And so you're not out of a job yet, guys. Don't worry.
Not yet. Till next time, good luck on your own developer journey. We will cheer for you always.
You want your heart rate? Pay us.